Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to What's Important Now, the podcast from the United States Border Patrol Academy. So as law enforcement professionals, from the moment we step off the bus to our academies and to the moment we hang up our uniforms, training is a huge part of who we are and what we do. Some of the training is used all the time. Some of the training seems almost fantastical in that it's far-fetched. It seems like, man, we'll never need this until we do. And it may only be one time in our career where we need it. And when that moment comes, we're glad that for years we have been training. There's no better example of this than the life and death situations that a law enforcement officer can find themselves in. And it's not like something you see on a movie or on TV. It affects us. Not just physically, psychologically, emotionally. It affects those around us. It affects our families. And the recovery is a long and arduous process. I have with me today Los Angeles County Deputy Sheriff Claudia Apolinar. And if you don't recognize that name, Deputy Apolinar and her partner were ambushed while sitting in their vehicle by a lone gunman and were shot multiple times.
U.S. 602 Frank, you have traffic? 602 Frank only, your traffic? 602 Frank, I can't copy you. TSPNS 602 Frank is advising in 998 Compton Pax. You have a unit to respond in 311.
4. Shot in the head. Bleeding out. Compton Pax, please.
10-4, I copy 998, deputy shot. 902R is going to be responding. Do I have a SAM unit responding to Compton?
I think Compton. Please come to the right.
He said Compton and Compton. We have Compton unit to start coordinating at block off so we can get the state practice. Compton, you are now patched in with CSP. There's a 998 at Compton Pax. We have a deputy down shot in the head who has responded.
We have 607 Frank Ricard from the wrong.
I have Century also patched in. Century, you're patched in with TSD and Compton. There's a 998 at Compton Pax. We have a deputy down. And 600 Cam confirm you're responding. 902R is being notified. Error on the frequency.
IC 650 Sam's off the rolling from Irwindale.
Sam, you're responding from Irwindale. And copy 280 Sam, you're also responding, and 658 Frank. Arrow in 5 minutes. Utah David 1, I copy, you're also responding, sir.
Hey, Century, start blocking off. We're going to go north-south area, Rosecrans. We're going to go north-south on Bullis. There's a deputy coming with a gunshot wound to the head. We're transporting headed northbound, coming up on Elm. I need units to block off Elm, northbound, to eastbound Imperial to St. Francis.
Is your unit to block up that location? And can you be advised of a suspect description and last name direction on the suspect?
Hey, all I got is George Blackout, NFB, 927 suspect.
And copy male black.
Suspect vehicle is going to be a black Mercedes sedan.
Copy suspect vehicle is a black Mercedes sedan. Is there a last known direction on it? And units per TSV death, the suspect is a male in a gray hoodie, white shirt, underneath dark pants or shorts, last seen running northbound on CCTV.
Well, as Assembly Member Reggie Jones Sawyer said, that was a cowardly act. The two deputies were doing their job, minding their own business, watching out for the safety of the people on the train, and seeing somebody just walk up and just start shooting on them, it pisses me off. They're both suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. They're out of surgery right now, so we're going to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. One is a 31-year-old mother of a 6-year-old boy. Her husband is here with them. The other one is a 24-year-old.
Both of them live to tell the tale. And today, Deputy Apolinar has taken time out of her schedule to travel down to the U.S. Border Patrol Academy and visit with us, talk to our trainees about what it takes to survive a harrowing experience like that. Claudia, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
We're glad you're here. We're glad you took the time. Hopefully no trouble with the flights getting down here.
No, luckily none of the flights were canceled, so hopefully we'll see when I get back.
So I want to introduce you to everybody. I want to tell them a little bit about your journey to get to being a deputy sheriff. So you graduated from the Los Angeles County Academy, class 437, on July 12th of 2019. Your initial assignment was the Century Regional Detention Facility. You only spent 6 months there before getting patrol, which I understand is a big deal.
Yes.
That's a relatively short period of time.
Yes, compared to how it used to be back in the day where it was like 6-7 years before you went out.
And then so you were assigned to the Transit Bureau. And for those that don't know, now the Transit Bureau in Los Angeles County, they deal with all the metro buses, the railways, and the stations. So you actually cover pretty much the entire county.
Yes, correct.
So that was a good assignment for you.
Yes.
Pretty excited to get it.
One day I was by Santa Monica by the beach. The next day I could be in Compton, Century's area. It's just, you could be anywhere in the county, which is pretty nice because you get to experience a lot more than just being in a station where you're just in that station patrolling the area where you're supposed to be at. So at least here you're able to, you have more freedom to go pretty much throughout the whole county.
That sounds like a pretty sought after position. That's pretty lucky, I would say. Yeah. So you didn't just start there, though. You actually, when you graduated high school in 2006, you started working for the County of Los Angeles, and your first job was with the county libraries. And did you know at that point you wanted to get into law enforcement?
I did, but I was still going to school, so there it was part-time, so I had a little bit more flexibility with the schedule with my classes. So I'm like, as long as I'm done with school first, get my degree, then once I'm ready, then I'll apply for law enforcement.
Okay. And then you took, a route that many of us take. In July of 2016, you actually joined the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department as a security assistant, ultimately becoming a security officer. Now, how does that differ from being a sheriff's deputy?
The security assistant, they're usually just at courts. They're not armed. It's a white shirt with the green pants. They're just doing security for anyone coming into the court. The security officer, basically kind of the same thing, but I was armed. I had my gun belt, pretty much everything that a deputy sheriff has, just no authority to arrest or do anything, like pretty much nothing, like security.
But that was your foot in the door to get into law enforcement.
That gave me a lot of experience. I was assigned to Martin Luther King Hospital, and they're working alongside with deputies. I had the experience of doing some of the stuff that deputy sheriffs actually do. Writing along with them, doing working on the computers, how to work the computers. So by the time I finally went to the academy, that was like a huge, it helped out a lot.
That's an all too common tale. Most people don't realize that it's tough to break into law enforcement, especially if you have one specific area in mind. If you're not willing to move or travel around, sometimes it takes getting your foot in the door, working your way up to ultimately getting to be a law enforcement professional. It's not something that you just typically apply for. You get accepted and you start your career.
Yes.
Very
correct,
typical
yes.
tale. And then, in fact, you went to the academy in was it January of 2018, and you were going through the academy, were injured, had to restart, go back through again once you healed, and then graduated.
Yes.
Now that too, especially for us, has been an all too common tale because our training is not just in the classroom. We're out there doing very physical activity, and injuries occur. I'm assuming that's the same for Los Angeles County as well.
Yes, when we're going through the academy, most of the people that get separated are due to injuries. And I was like halfway through the academy when I got injured, and unfortunately I couldn't do the PT, I couldn't run. The pain was really bad where I couldn't really do anything, and I had to be separated. But I took the time to heal because I'm like, this is what I want, and that's not going to stop me.
So your resiliency was shining through even back then.
Yes.
But, if you want something bad enough, you persevere, you get it.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing for anybody that's getting into law enforcement to hear, because injuries happen, setbacks happen, but you stay the course. You keep trying until you achieve your goal. So right there, anybody that's watching would have seen you had that mindset from the beginning, and that ultimately helped you in this event that we're about to talk about. So let me take everybody through kind of the official version before Claudia talks to us about it, to remind everybody what had happened. So on September 12th of 2020, Deputy Apolinar was with her partner in a patrol vehicle at the Martin Luther King Transit Center in Compton. And they just completed their routine patrol when a lone gunman approached and fired several shots into their vehicle. Several rounds struck both deputies. They were hit in the head, torso, arms. Deputy Apolinar was severely wounded, including a wound to her face. Despite being severely injured, she was able to communicate via her service radio, directed backup to the location, indicated that the suspect had fled the scene, and then turned her attention to her partner. She got out of the vehicle. They both took cover. Her partner had also been struck in the arm and head, but she was still able to render aid despite her own severe injuries. And together they maintained a strategic position until backup arrived. Now I want you to think about that for a second. You're there in your vehicle doing your job, and out of the blue somebody comes up and opens fire. You're hit several times, and you still have the wherewithal, you still have your senses about you, the situational awareness, to do what you needed to do to survive, get help on the way, and take care of your partner. And I want you to think about how many people in the world would be able to do that, because I'm sitting across from somebody who did. And I want you to hear from her, in her own words, what that day was like. So Claudia, if you don't mind, take us through that day and how it happened for you.
Of course. So that day I was working. I started off at 6 in the morning. I actually picked up overtime for the day shift. My regular shift was on PMs from 2 to 11 p.m. So for the day shift, I was by Santa Monica, there at the beach, patrolling the beach area. And then once it was time for my second shift, went back to the station to pick up my partner who was about to start his shift. We had only been there, we're actually both from the same class, from 437. He came out to patrol about a month before I did. He was training at Temple. I trained at San Dimas Station, and we both got to TSB in August. The first month, we were pretty much all over the place. We didn't have an exact spot that we had to patrol until the month of September. That's when we were both assigned to the same unit, and we were in charge of the Compton packs, the Del Amo packs, and Artesia packs. So during a certain time, we had to be at a certain packs for that amount of time.
And what does that stand for?
The packs are the train stations.
Okay.
That's where that's what they call the platforms.
Okay.
So during a certain time, we had to be at whatever packs it said for that time. It was our second week that we had just started working those 3 stations. And then that day, so picked them up. It was just like any other day that the time that we had been there. So we went to our first train station, did our patrol check, and around like 4:30 p.m., I'm like, let's get something to eat right now. Right now, that's not too busy. So right next to where this happened, there's a parking structure, and that's where usually where we would have lunch. Go all the way to the very top, eat our lunch. And I just remember telling I have to use the restroom, so we'll go down, check the area, and then we'll take off to the next one, to the next train station. So I park right where I was parked. Because there we're pretty much out in the open, so it's kind of hard to position your vehicle where you have a little bit more cover. So I parked there, get off, use the restroom, come back, and then I just remember telling him, oh, we'll take off, like, I think we had like 30 more minutes to go, that we had to be there before we had to move on. And I just remember, like, there was a taxi in front, like, on the street. So I'm like, oh, I'll just wait for the taxi to move so I could just jump the curb and then take off from there, instead of going around through the little streets, because the little streets there, they're really narrow, and it's like a little bit more like officer safety stuff that I was worried about, like going through the streets. So we never made it from there. A little bit before 7, I was the driver, my partner was in the passenger seat, and I never saw the suspect where he came from, never saw where he ran, nothing. So all I remember is sitting there, and I just remember hearing the gunshots, and all of a sudden, like, I've never been in a fight, so I would imagine it would feel like getting punched in the face, and it's like, everything was black for a moment, and I just remember thinking, this is really happening, like, what they tell us in the academy, it's happening, it's like now. So I just remember, like, I kind of snapped out of it, like, right away. I felt my face, this part was, like, really warm. My arms felt warm. I looked down. I had a long sleeve. My shirt was a long sleeve shirt. And I just remember seeing the holes on my shirt. I remember going for the E trigger. It's the little button that we have on our radios, in case we can't put out radio traffic. That way it'll alert our dispatchers that something's going on. So I remember going for that because I didn't know what was going to happen. But all I could think of was my son. I'm like, I have a 6-year-old, at the time he was 6, at home, who still needs his mom. And I'm like, I'm not going to die today. Like, not today. So I remember trying to put out radio traffic. And right away, I'm like, I couldn't talk. So it turned out my tongue was cut in half. One of the rounds went in through my right cheek, right behind my teeth. So I missed all of my teeth. None of them were knocked out. So wow. I was surprised. So went in through the right side, cut my tongue in half, and came out on the left side. And on the left, it did knock out it shattered some of the bones. So I'm trying to put out radio traffic as calm as I could, like, just get what we need, get the help that we need. And I got really frustrated because, like, the dispatcher was like, she kept on saying, like, 10-9, like, repeat, like, I can't understand you. And I'm like, okay, I had to remain calm, because it's like, if I start panicking, then they're not going to understand what I'm trying to say. And I just remember to, like, at the same time, like, my partner, he's like, Apolinar, I got shot in the head. So I'm like, damn, like, it's both of us. It's not just me, it's both of us. And I turn and I look at him. His face is completely covered in blood. And from there, we both step out of the vehicle. He goes around. And I'm still trying to put out radio traffic to get help. And it's just like so much things going on at the same time. And it's like everything that they tell you, like, you have to look for cover. You have to be aware of your surroundings, like the tunnel vision that they tell you. For some reason, like, I was aware of everything. Like, I remember seeing a group of 15 to 20 people just south of us, and with their phones recording, saying, like, a whole bunch of stuff, yeah. Like, and there's video on there. I saw the video later on.
Disgusting video.
Yes. So I had that going on because I'm like, I don't know where the shooter's at. I don't know if he's going to come back. Like, you don't know. So my partner comes around. We both go behind cover. He took out his tourniquet, and he's trying to put it on. So he got hit once in the bicep, the elbow, his hand, and then once in the head. It went, like, right in between his the skin and the skull, and it came out. And I just, like, he's trying to put on the tourniquet, and he's not able to. So that's when I go, and I'm like, I help him put it on. So what they tell us, what I remember, it's like, if you don't know where you've been hit, just go up as high as you can. And hopefully that will stop the bleeding. In that moment, you remembered that? Yes. I'm like, I didn't know, because, like I said, his arm was completely covered in blood. I didn't know where he was hit. So I'm just going to go up as high as I could, put it as tight as possible. When I'm putting it on, I remember feeling like I'm able to move my arms, my hands are good, but I don't have the strength that I did. So I'm like, okay, I got hit in the arms, like in both arms. And at the time, it's like, I didn't know if it was blood, like I thought it was a blood from my face, from my mouth, that was coming out. But then when I saw the holes in both arms, I'm like, okay, I got hit in both arms. So I didn't feel no pain at all. Like the adrenaline just kicked in. Nothing hurt. Like I couldn't, this just felt numb. I could taste the blood. I could like me swallowing the blood. My arms just feeling weak. And like I said, I put on the tourniquet as best as I could. And then when I'm doing that, like he's trying to put out radio traffic, but it turned out he got a bullet hit his radio. So he wasn't able to, it wasn't working because he was like trying to press it and nothing came out.
So yours was the only radio working?
Mine was the only radio working. So when I'm putting on the tourniquet, I gave him my radio, and that's when he puts out clear traffic. What seemed like an eternity, it seemed like we were there for like 30 minutes. Like time just completely slowed down. Was actually a little bit less than like 2 minutes before Compton station showed up. And that's when, so I believe it was like the dispatchers from our station from TSB that they zoomed in on the cameras because they have access to the cameras. And that's where they saw what was happening. And they alerted the other station so they can go and help us. So as soon as we hear the sirens, we see the lights, it's like, we're going to be good. Like, we're going to be good. So we both, once they get there, we both get up from where we were at. We walk towards their vehicle. And then I remember the entire ride to the hospital. We go in the back seat. We both go in the same car. And I just remember everything, like the vehicles, every vehicle was blocking an intersection so we can just go straight to the hospital, complete a straight route to the hospital. We get there, we get off. Like, we're both alert the entire time. We never passed out or anything. I remember being at the hospital, and it's like I'm still trying to help the nurses and the doctors take off my gear. I'm like, so they don't rip it. I'm thinking about my gear. I'm like, don't rip my gear. So they ended up ripping my uniform, but yeah, it's like it wasn't until they put me to sleep, and the next day, that's when they had like an emergency surgery where for my face, they didn't really do anything, like just kind of let the bones heal on its own, and then they stitched my tongue back together.
So I want to go back a second because, I mean, that's an incredible story. And two human beings doing their job, normal day at work. You were talking about food and needing to go to the restroom and just moving on to your next assignment, and this happened out of the blue. And that moment when and this wasn't just one round that was fired, this was multiple rounds. You both were hit multiple times. And what you're describing is a little bit disorienting. I mean, you knew enough to know something bad had happened, and you could kind of gauge that you had been shot. But to piece together that your partner had been shot, that took a little bit of time. And you said that everything kind of slowed down. So it felt like an eternity in your world when this was going on. But in actuality, it was just a couple minutes.
Yes.
And so that's that hypersensitivity. You said you were aware of everything around you. So you knew about the individuals near you that were filming. I watched that video too. Sorry excuse for a human being that would be celebrating or taking joy in anybody going through something like that. And then you finally got called for backup. And what kind of struck me when you said that was you were having trouble talking, and you had the wherewithal to hand your only functioning radio to your partner who could talk, and it was kind of a team effort to actually get help on the way. Yes. I don't know if but that was a true partnership taking place there. And then when you heard the sirens, I can only imagine a tremendous sense of relief that must have been to know that your brothers and sisters were almost there.
Yes.
Right. So that's what everybody saw. That's what everybody got to know. And nowadays, I think a lot of folks are so desensitized because of what is on TV and what they see in movies. And you and I were talking about it earlier. You're used to seeing the hero in a movie get shot in the shoulder, and yet they're still able to heal in a day or two and still able to do their job. Not true. Not true at all. You actually have undergone and are still undergoing the recovery process. Talk a little bit about your injuries and what you've had to go through and what you've had to heal thus far. You're not even back to full duty yet.
No.
And how long has it been since this took place?
A little over a year.
A little over a year, and you are still not back to full duty. What were some of the injuries that you sustained?
So I got hit, like I said, on the face. It went in through the right cheek, right behind my teeth. it cut my tongue in half. So my tongue was hanging and I felt it. Like I still remember that feeling of my tongue just like flapping around. Like it just felt weird. And then it came out on the left side, like by the jawbone. The jawbone on the left side was completely shattered. A whole bunch of little pieces like destroyed. And I got hit in both arms. So one round went through both arms, breaking the ulna bone in each arm. Once I got to the hospital, the next day when I woke up and I finally spoke to the doctor, so I don't have any metal plates anywhere on my body. They just kind of put the bones, like kind of did a little bridge for the bones to heal on their own. And they're still healing. That's why it's just taking a little bit longer. My tongue was stitched back together. That actually healed pretty fast. My mouth was wired for about 2 months. So completely wired just to let the bones heal. I think that was actually pretty hard because I had to be on a liquid diet for 2 months. So, I mean, it was good
That'd be
and bad.
tough for me.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing that I saw in it was that I actually lost a little bit of weight. But I mean, like, it was hard. I think that was really hard, just not being able to talk. At nighttime, after the first month, the second month I was just in so much pain at nighttime. I was afraid of going to sleep because I knew it was coming. So at nighttime after, like I said, the first month was fine, but the second month I was having muscle spasms on the left side, and that pain just traveled up into like my ear, and it was really, really painful. Like I couldn't take it. Like there was days where I would cry because it's like, I don't want to go to sleep. Like it's going to hurt. Like it was just really bad. And my arms, I had a cast in each arm for also about 2 months. And then I had a brace for about another month. And that pretty much, the doctor just put them back in place and just let them heal on their own. Luckily, I don't have any nerve damage. So my arms are fine, but I don't have the strength yet. So I'm still going to physical therapy for my arms just to get my strength back. For the face, I just started a treatment with the Invisalign because after they took out the wires, my bite was off. And it's like I'm not able to open my mouth as much. So it's like probably like about 2 inches that I could open. And it's just getting used to, I mean, like the eating, like a burger, I can't, it's hard for me to eat. I had to buy like in little pieces so I could actually like bite it. So it's pretty hard, but it's for what it was. Like I'm not complaining. Like
Sure.
I'm here. I'm almost back to normal. Another thing that will be permanent. So my lower lip and my chin, they're completely numb. I don't have any feeling.
And that's forever.
That's forever. So that's from my tongue being from it being it severed one of the nerves leading up to the feeling that you get here, which I'm okay with too. I'm like I'm not complaining. Like the only thing that is like whenever I eat or drink, I'm constantly going like this because I can't feel. So there's times where I'm eating or drinking and it's like I'll have food here, but other than that, it's like I'm thankful to God. And I mean,
You have a very positive outlook despite what happened to you. And that comes through talking to you. What about your partner? How's he doing?
he's doing good. Like with his recovery, his arm, like he's having a little bit more issues with his arm, where he will need more surgeries for the elbow and his hand. He does have a plate, I believe, in his hand and the elbow, so he will need a couple more surgeries to see hopefully if that helps with his movement with his hand. That's where he's having a little bit more issues with, but hopefully, I mean, he's doing a lot better too.
Good. And again, a year later, still going through it. And that's I think we need to drive that point home because, number one, law enforcement is a dangerous profession, despite what some people would want to say. And it only takes one time, and when these bad things happen, and the impact on our lives, on the lives of our family, and we're going to talk about that in a second, is profound. It's not something that you see on TV. It's not something that you see on the movies. And what you just described, this recovery process, that goes unseen as well. Once it leaves the news outlets and that initial event is gone in everybody's mind, they don't think about all this that a person has to go through that's been through an ordeal like that. Now I want to transition. You have a 6-year-old son and your family. Talk about what this was like for him. Matter of fact, how did your son find out that this happened to you?
Well, actually, we never told him what happened. I mean, like, he knew I was in the hospital for 9 days. So he knew, like, something had happened, but didn't know what. So, I mean, he's still pretty young, so I don't want to tell him the truth, like, what had happened. So we basically told him, like, I got injured. It was a training accident. I was running, and I broke my jaw and my arms. Because it's, like, the way I saw it, it's, like, he's too young to understand. I mean, he probably could, but I don't want him to, once I have to go back to work, for him to be worrying every single day that I go back. It's, like, is my mom going to come home today? So that's something where it's, like, I don't want him to go through that. Once he's old enough, a little bit older, then most likely, like, we will tell him what happened.
And that's a mom taking care of her son. I mean, that's and I think that's a very fair position. And I think I might do the same thing if I were in your place. What about your other family, your parents, and how did they find out?
They didn't tell them. They just said I was in an accident. It wasn't until they got to the hospital where they actually found out, like, what had happened. And they told him, like, she's fine, but this is what happened. I think it was harder for my dad. My mom's a little bit stronger, and then my husband, too, like, they were fine, but it was my dad that took it the hardest. I'm thankful for them because they were there throughout the entire time. Like, after, like, in the beginning, you have all these people, like, oh, like, how are you? But then, like you said, all that, they start to forget. And, like, the last ones there, it's your family, and they're always going to be there. So, I mean, like, I couldn't shower. I couldn't do things that I would usually do on a daily basis. They were always there. They're the ones that did everything for me those 2 months that I couldn't do anything.
And that's one of the things that we try and talk to all of our trainees about is remembering who matters most in your life. You know, having that balance and knowing that when you retire, when you leave this job, there's a core group that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, and that's your family.
Yes.
And they have been the ones that have never left your side.
Yes.
And that, I mean, that just, if that doesn't put an exclamation point on just how important our families are in what we do, and I can only imagine what it's like for them. As you're talking about your dad and how he felt, you know, I'm a father myself, I'm a grandfather, and I'm trying to think about something like that happening to one of my sons or my granddaughter, and no, I think he's probably justified in not taking it very well, because I don't think I would either, you know. And again, I don't know that people give enough thought to the impact something like this has on our families as well. And I want to point that out for everybody here, because we have to recognize the sacrifice that our family makes as we go out and do this job as well. So it sounds like they have been there for you and then some.
I mean, with me, like, I've always wanted to do this job, like, since I was little, but my family comes first. And it's like, they're always going to be there, especially after this happened. It's like, they're the ones that are going to be there all the time.
So how has the law enforcement community responded to you after in the wake of this event?
The support from not just law enforcement, but the community, but law enforcement, I mean, like, throughout the entire country. It's like all the support that we got. Like, there was a caravan, I think, from Utah, of police officers that came from Utah, and they stopped at every, like, police station on their way to LA. And I mean, it was just, like, amazing to see all the support, not just here in the country, but, like, we got some letters from, like, from Canada, from New Zealand, and it was just, like, it's just amazing, like, to see all of law enforcement come together. I wasn't there at the command post when this happened, but I heard from different people saying it, like, everyone just responded. Everyone went to the command post to see what they needed help with. Not just sheriff's departments, but, like, the surrounding agencies, LAPD, Redondo Beach, like, the smaller police agencies around there. Everyone went to see what they could help with, like, whatever it was. And it was just, I mean, amazing to see all the support. So
we talk about all the time how the law enforcement profession is a brotherhood, a sisterhood, how we're all family, because we all know what it's like to go out and do this job. And so you found that to be true.
Yes.
And so this is coming from somebody who has actually lived it and experienced it. This is more than just a job. This is a calling. Yes. And I'll let you, if you disagree, let me know. But I think that comes from the type of person that gets into a profession like this. Somebody that wants to serve a greater good, that wants to help their fellow man or woman. They create that environment where a family like this exists, the law enforcement profession. What made you decide to get into law enforcement? What called you to this profession?
ever since I was little, I mean, just watching movies, I'm like, oh, that looks cool. It looks fun. And like I said, once I went through college, when I first went to college, I actually my major was psychology, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I'm like, I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a nurse. I'm like, I don't want to do that stuff because I'm like, it's the same thing every single day. I'm like, I don't like that. It's like repetitive. So I took my first criminal justice class, and one of my professor, he was a retired LA County Sheriff deputy, and just hearing his stories, like everything, like his experience, and not just like with the material from class, but his own experience and stories that he had when he was out on patrol. I'm like, that sounds cool. Like, I want to do that. But like at the same time, like I knew I wanted to finish school first. So I'm like, no, I'll finish school first, and then that's when I'll start applying, which I did. I applied like for the Sheriff's Department back in 2011, I believe. But I wasn't in shape, so I'm like, okay, I have to work on getting in shape. And then I came back, and that's when I finally did it. But it was just something that I've always liked. Even now, it's like, even though this happened, I don't see it's like, I mean, it could happen to anyone. So I'm not going to be there like, oh, what if this happens again? It could not. But I'm not going to, so early off in my career, I mean, I only have 2 years on now. I'm not going to just give up and walk away from it. It's like, I want to go back. I want to go back out to patrol because this is what I worked for. I mean, it took me 2 academies to finish, but I want to go back. I miss it. And I want to give back to the community because it's like, I wanted to work initially at East LA Station because that's where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And just to be able to protect those kids, because it's like I have my son now. It's like I would want my son to be safe, as well as all the other hardworking people that live there in the community, the kids especially.
So despite the fact that this happened, this has not deterred you at all. You still feel that calling, and you still want to do this job. Yes.
I mean, even like a month after it happened, I wanted to go back to work because I missed it.
And see, I want everybody to think about the type of person that it takes you can survive an ordeal like this, and you go undaunted, undeterred, and you want to get right back out there to help your community, to be there and make a better world for your child, your family. I don't think just anybody can do that. I think it takes a special type of person, and that's what you represent. You are the human side of this profession that I think a lot of times gets demonized or misconstrued. There are real people in these uniforms going out and doing these jobs for a reason, and that reason is very altruistic. They care about their community and those around them. You're an example of that. You can go through one of the most harrowing experiences. You can have a terrible individual do something evil to you. You can have people on the sideline laughing and joking and videoing about it. Yet I bet you would still put your life on the line to keep them safe. And that's what you're doing right now, trying to get back to being on duty and going out there on patrol. And I'm assuming your partner feels the same way.
Yes, definitely. It's like, because it's like I said, like so early on in our career, it's like we worked so hard going through the academy for 5.5 months. And it's just something that I've always liked, and I don't see myself doing anything else but this.
Now, in terms of the community, now we talked about the one gunman and the 15 or 20 individuals that making a mockery of the incident. Mm-hmm. Does that tarnish your image of the community?
No, it doesn't, because I know it's not, they don't represent the entire community. That's them. I mean, even at the hospital, too, there was people blocking the entrance to the hospital. They were, like, chanting or screaming, like, let them die, let them die. And I know it's, like, that's them. There's always going to be people like that. Like, I don't pay attention to those kind of people.
It doesn't represent the majority.
It doesn't. And the community, also during this when this happened, like the support from the community, like it was just incredible. It's like there's so many people that came out to support us, like the letters from little kids. Like, I mean, it was just amazing. At the hospital, there was people taking food to the deputies that were providing security. There was this one lady that, even after we left from the hospital, we were discharged, this lady and her daughter were at the corner of the hospital with signs saying, we support the blue, just in support. And it was just like I said, the support from the community was amazing. Like, so I know those group of people do not represent the entire community.
And I don't think that got talked about very much. I mean, the support that you received. Mm-hmm. I think there are people that want to try and build this narrative that it is the community hates all law enforcement, but that's not really true.
No, they don't. They don't.
I feel that same way. I think that our communities, by and large, do support us, and I think those vocal few sometimes capture the spotlight, but I don't remember hearing anything about that outpouring of support that you talked about. I don't think that that got any kind of recognition at all.
I don't think it did either. But yes, it's like I said, all the stuff that I got, like especially the letters from little kids, I'm like, that's just amazing. Like these little kids, like drawing patrol cars, or like it was just like, I can't explain it, but it's just something like you said, they didn't talk about that, but the community does support us and they want us there. It's just a very few that's where the media focuses on. That's what gets exposed, like, oh, we don't like the cops, but it's not like that.
Well, and at the end of the day, we are part of those communities.
Yes.
You are a part of LA County.
Yes.
Those are that you grew up there, that you have friends and family and loved ones that are a part of that community as well. So why wouldn't they?
Yes.
It just it kind of begs the question, why aren't the good things being covered? Out of a tragic situation like that, there was a lot of good that came out of the outpouring of support, the love from your brothers and sisters in law enforcement to be there for you, your family, how you've adapted, how you have persevered and overcome these injuries. There is a ton of good to be taken from this tragic story. Seems like sometimes we ought to focus on that a little bit more than the small bit of negative.
Yes. And that's why it's like with the recovery process and everything, like that's what I look at and not the negative stuff. Like this happened, but what came from it was just so much more meaningful than that. For I think that's what has helped me with the recovery, because it's like I don't look at that like the situation like it happened. I think about it every single day. Like there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it, but I don't let that affect me because it doesn't define who I am. So the support and all that's what like motivates me, and just trying to stay busy. Another thing, I talk with the psychologist from the department. Like I would talk to her every week, like after this happened, and she even told me, she's like, you're fine. Like you look for what it was, like your attitude. Like I'm like, well, I have to. I'm like, I can't be there sitting crying about what happened to me, because it's like that's gonna take over, and I don't want that to happen. It's like I have my little boy, and I don't want him to see me crying every day or feeling sorry for myself or scared, like where I don't go out and just live my normal life.
So I know this is another positive that came from this event that I'm going to talk about in a second, and that is you being the example for the need for training, for the right mindset when you're out there doing this job, for the importance of family, and the truth about the relationship between law enforcement and the communities we serve. I want to get to that in a second. But I also understand that there is a suspect that was taken into custody.
Yes.
What can you tell us about him?
I can't really go into much detail because the case is still ongoing. They did catch him a couple days after our incident. They were able to tie him to the shooting. But other than that, like I really haven't heard much. The preliminary hearing hasn't started yet, I believe. So I don't really know what's going on with the case. Pretty sure if it goes to trial, then that's when I'll probably end up going to court. But right now I haven't been able to go to court. And that's pretty much it. Okay. I didn't know him. I never came in contact with him while I was there. So it was just something random. And especially during that time when it happened, it was like all this hate towards the police and law enforcement. So.
Well, we'll be watching with a keen interest to see how that unfolds.
Yes.
And hopefully justice is served.
Hopefully.
So let's talk about the aftermath and how you have put a positive spin on this to an even greater degree. You have chosen to come out and talk about the importance of certain aspects of our training and how we are as law enforcement officers to survive a situation like this. It would be very easy for you to retreat in and not talk about it, and you would have every right to do so, but you've chosen to take a stand and speak and talk to trainees and other law enforcement professionals about your experience so that hopefully they can learn from it, and maybe one day their lives will be saved as well. There was a couple key things that you talked about. So you said the training and how it kicked in. Now I know you've been in for 2 years. That's a relatively junior officer in the big scheme of things, but you handled it like a veteran. So talk a little bit about that training. I want to revisit that a little bit. And I know you had just gone through the academy not too long ago, but you said the training kicked in as soon as I needed it. So when the instructors say that, that's a true statement. If you practice enough, if you train enough, it will be there for you the one time you may need it in your career.
Yes. When this happened, I had only been on for about a year and like 14. It was about 14 months before this happened, and I'm like, I don't have the experience that some of these guys, like my training officers have, my other deputies, other law enforcement. So I mean, I knew I needed to train, like whether continue going to training or anything that would help. The training that we got in the academy, 5.5 months, we go over like the tourniquets, but it's not something that you use all the time. It's like you do the training and that's pretty much it. It's just there on your belt. Hopefully you never have to use it, but I mean, when you do, hopefully you know how to use it, how to properly put it, and just remembering little like scenarios. We had a scenario for ambush. So what they tell us, it's like, okay, you get ambushed, you're being shot at. First thing you need to do, if you could shoot back. If not, like run for cover and then put out radio traffic once you're safely behind cover.
And that was going through your head as this happened?
Everything was going through my head. I'm like, okay, like I kind of felt like a scenario, because when I did the scenarios where it's like, because we need that to pass in order for us to graduate. And I remember like we have like steps, like when we would practice, like, okay, I need if I could shoot back, I'll shoot back. But if not, look for cover and then put out radio traffic, and then be aware of your surroundings, because they talk about tunnel vision. Like you're gonna get tunnel vision when something happens, like when you're in a life and death situation. Even when you're not, like you'll get tunnel vision, and that's all you focus on, and you forget everything else. You forget your training. But for whatever reason that day, it's like, okay, like my eyes, like I just felt like were wide open, and it's like I could see everything, hear everything, taste everything, like all your senses were like they were just on high alert. I didn't feel any pain, the adrenaline, and I think that too like helped me, like, okay, I'm not focusing on the pain. I have other things to worry about. I'm like my partner. When I saw my partner, I'm like, that could be my son. So it's like I have him. So it's like all these things that they talk about, like scenarios that videos that they show us of officers getting shot, and it's like it's just so many things going on. I don't know if I could explain it that well, but for whatever reason, like it just kicked in.
I don't think I could have said it any better. I mean, that's a perfect example of exactly what is taught probably at every law enforcement academy in the country. The training is important. There's a reason why we do it. And if you do it enough, it will be there when you need it. Mm-hmm. And you have just proven that theory to be true. The other thing is our state of mind, our mindset, that you do not give up. No matter how bad you are injured, no matter what the situation is, you have to have it in your mind, I will survive this. And I heard you say that as you were talking about it once. You never once thought that I'm going to die.
No, never. I'm like, not today. I'm like, not today. So I think the mindset's really important when something like this, because it's like, if you're just there, it's like you're bleeding, or I mean, whatever it is, or you hear gunshots, and a lot of people just freeze. You have to have that mindset. Like, know that this could happen, but how are you going to react? Like, I mean, if they ask me, like, what would you do if something like this happens? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I'm going to react until it happens. And I mean, for people to say like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. Like, it's like, yeah, like that would be nice.
In theory, yeah.
In theory, it would be nice. But I mean, you really don't know how you're going to react until it actually happens. And that's what the mindset, I think, is really important, the will to survive. Because if you're just there and you give up, like, that's when you die. And it's like, no, it's like I have something to live for, someone, and I'm not going to let that little kid, like, grow up without a mom. And I think it's important, like, for everyone, like, everyone, like, to have something to look forward to going home to. Which
dovetails into the importance of family in our lives when we go out and do a job like this.
Yes.
And keeping focus on that. When we get into these types of jobs, it's very easy to be focused and energetic about it, almost to the exclusion of everything else, because we're excited, we love what we do. And it's very easy to put those that are important kind of in the back seat. Mm-hmm. And what you just described to me is in a moment when you needed it most, that which was most important to you rose to the top quick, and that got you through the incident.
Yeah.
I cannot think, I couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better. And you have become an example for how we should all be, why we should train, and why that mindset is so important. And the courage it has taken for you to survive this incident and to go through the recovery process, to make the choice to become an example and go out and talk to recruits and trainees so that they benefit from your experience. We're very humbled and we're very honored that you took the time to come out and visit with us today. And I am proud and honored to say that I am in a profession with somebody like you. You're the reason that many of us choose to get into a profession like this, because we want to be on a team with that caliber of individual. So thank you, Claudia, for everything that you did. Now, before we sign off, we have everybody listening. So I want to let you give a shout out or any words that you want to give to the men and women that are out on patrol right now, or the men and women that are thinking about joining this law enforcement profession. What nuggets or words of wisdom can you give to them to help them get home at the end of their shift?
I mean, if this is something that you always wanted, that this is something that you enjoy doing, just do it. Like, sign up, go through it. It's going to be hell. I mean, there's days where it's like, oh, like, why am I doing this? But at the end of the day, it's like, it's another day's like a new day will start tomorrow. And I mean, like, right now, like, all the negativity and all that stuff, like, I don't let that affect me, because I'm like, that's not gonna like affect who I am or my views towards law enforcement. Like, I know who I am and what I've always wanted to do, and it's important. I mean, if it's something that you've always wanted, you should just do it. And all the negative stuff, just leave it aside. Don't let that affect you, affect your mentality, and be like, why am I doing this? Like, I've never second guessed myself of why I went into this. And right now, I mean, it's pretty tough to be in law enforcement right now. It is. But at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, like, hopefully this will pass. And if you enjoy doing something, like, why not?
Do it with all your might.
Yes.
And to the families that send us out the door each and every day, what do you want to tell them?
Well, I mean, I think they're a very important part of keeping us together. Because, you have someone there. It's tough. I think it's tougher on the families than for us, because it's like they're the ones going through it. Not having you home, being there by themselves, and especially on little kids. Like, it's tough, but I think your family should always come first. Like, your job is your job, but your family's always going to be there no matter what. Like, once you retire, whatever it is, like, your family's going to be there always for you. And I mean, you just have to support them. That way it makes it a little bit easier for them, and for them to come home, or if they want to go through this, like, to help them in order for them to succeed.
Well said. Claudia, we wish you a speedy recovery, and we cannot wait to see you back in uniform and back out on patrol where you want to be. I want you to know that the entire Green family of the United States Border Patrol is right there beside you, and with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, our brothers and sisters up there doing a very difficult job. Wish you all the best and a safe return each and every shift. Thanks for being here. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much. It was an honor for having me here, and thank you.
And that's going to do it again, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of What's Important.